The village of Bere, where we live, is a difficult village for the local people to live. There's no electricity or running water, and it's difficult to grow food because it's so hot. They only grow food mainly about 2 or 3 months out of the year, and the rest of the time is living on what they have left from the harvest. And so as a result, we see a lot of malnourished children. And we had one boy come about a year ago who was older than our oldest son, about 3.5 or something, and he was smaller than our youngest daughter, who was barely 2, and he couldn't walk, and he just, looked terrible. So we tried to tell the mother some things she could do. We gave her some soybeans and told her to mash those up and give them to him every day so he would get some protein and so on. And he might have been doing a little bit better, but then we had to leave for a while, and when we got back, they live a long ways away, we couldn't find them. And finally, just recently, they came back, and he was barely walking, but still not doing a lot better than a year ago. And so I said, we have to do something, or this boy is not going to live. And we took him to the hospital, treated him for malaria and giardia, parasites, and then started feeding him every day, giving her food. And within a couple of weeks, he was so much better, smiling and playing a little bit, even walking a little bit, although, it's going to take a long time for him to regain all that muscle. But the main thing that they eat is millet and sorghum, which is grains, and they just grind it up and mix it with water, and they drink that. And the kids may go for 3, 4, 5 days, and that's all they eat. And so we're just trying to educate them that you have to have some nutrients in this food, or the kids are not gonna thrive. So we're thinking about starting a nutrition center where the kids can come, we can feed them. We want to show them how to grow gardens better and irrigate and do some things so that the kids can do better and mentally do better and just help their country to improve.
God is really blessed in the work there in Africa. One of the stories that I'd like to share with you today is about when we first moved to Africa. I traveled up to the country of Chad to a small mission hospital there called Bere Adventist Hospital. And before I was supposed to even go up there, there was a Muslim man and his wife who were in the hospital. His wife had been hospitalized for a routine cesarean section to deliver their baby. But then after that, she developed complications. Every time when she was just about ready to be discharged and go home, there was something else that would come up that would force them to stay in the hospital. This went on for about 2.5 months. While the husband was there, he was watching the operation of the hospital, and he would see the doctor go up to the capital city and come home very tired from the rough travel on the roads. And during that time, he was also attending morning worships, where they get together and sing and tell about stories from the Bible. Well, during that time, he would stay kind of in the background because he didn't want to be associated with this group really. But as time went along, he became more and more friendly and advanced to sit down with them. And about the time that his wife was supposed to go home again, he was sitting in a morning worship. And they asked, does anybody here have a prayer request? And he raised his hand, and everybody looked and thought that was a little strange for this man to be having a prayer request. But they said, what is your prayer request? And he said, I've seen what happens here at the hospital. I've seen how the doctor gets tired traveling on these terrible roads here in the rainy season. And I'd like to pray that God will send us an airplane to be here at this hospital so it can help bring medicines and bring the doctors and to help with the general operation of the hospital here. And the response was, from all the Christians there, was overwhelmingly negative. They thought this guy was asking for, it'd be an equivalent of a church here in America praying that they could have their own spacecraft. It was just totally ridiculous. There's virtually no small planes in the country of Chad. And for this man, his audacity to stand up and ask that a plane would come and be based at their hospital was just out of the question. So they all scoffed at him. But they put it in the prayer request list. And 2 weeks later, I wrote to the doctor there and said, I'm coming up to see about the options of establishing a medical aviation project there. And so when I arrived at this mission hospital, I had the privilege of meeting this Muslim man who had stood up after hearing stories from the Bible, stories of faith, and said, I would like to pray for a plane to be based here. About 2 months later, we moved to that small remote village, and now there's a plane based at that small hospital. You know, the medical aviation work, the schools, the television networks have been moving forward tremendously well. God is blessing. We see His hand at work as these projects move forward. But this all comes with a cost. During the Old Testament times, you read of the prophets and how they lived lives in seclusion sometimes. It was not always easy. As you move into the Dark Ages, and then you hear about the reformers, they had it extremely rough. You know, the blood of the martyrs was the seed of the gospel. And today, missionaries leave the comforts of their home, their families, their friends, to go to these remote parts of the world to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. For us, one of the hardest challenges that we've had is that 5 weeks ago we laid our firstborn son to rest on the continent of Africa. We know that we'll see him again soon, but it is a challenge, and this work will go forward only through extreme sacrifice. One of the interesting aspects about our son is that he always loved to talk about the second coming of Jesus. His favorite songs were songs of Jesus' second coming. Lift up the trumpet loud, let it rain. But one of his favorite songs was, when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. It says, when the trumpet of the Lord shall sound, and time shall be no more, and the morning breaks eternal, bright and fair. When the saints of earth shall gather over on the other shore. When the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. And the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, 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 I'll be there. And you know, Caleb didn't know all the words to that song, but when he didn't know the words, he would just interject, when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. And we know that we'll see him in heaven very soon. The question is, what are you doing to help share the gospel with your family, with your friends, and those that don't know?
Partout, depuis Congo jusqu'à l'Indonésie, Amérique du Sud. Partout, je pars, j'ai rendez-vous.
Je suis ton sauveur, travailler pour être maître, le servir en attendant.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, Jésus Koboran, comme la vie, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Jésus Koboran, comme la vie, hallelujah. Kaelo abre, kaelo abre, kaelo.